Today, on the Vince Everett Ellison Show, we're going to talk about how the Democrat Party steals elections. Yeah, I know they've been talking about it for a long time. People say, no, that Democrats don't steal it. I'm going to prove to you today that they steal elections. So I want you to share. I want you to comment. I want you to subscribe to this channel because they're going to try to block me, but we're not going to let them do it, okay? These tech people, they don't like us conservatives. So we're going to talk about how the Democratic Party steals elections today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, let's get this thing started. There's a great author by the name of William Faulkner, and he wrote this book called The Requiem for a Nun. One of his greatest sayings from Mr. Faulkner says, "The past is never dead. It is not even the past." The past is never dead. It's not even the past. Well, that comes true when it talks about Democrats steal elections. They've been stealing elections, y'all, since 1876. And they are masters at it. I mean, even before Al Davis, head coach and owner of the Oakland Raiders, made his great statement, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, the Democrats were already doing that. They came up with that line long time before Al Davis came up with it. Al Davis was a shrewd, old, mean coach. He just said, win, baby, win. And if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Just win. That's the Democratic Party's motto. And they've been doing it for a very, very long time. Look, man, I know a lot of y'all out there don't want to believe this. Y'all have heard from MSNBC and CNN, Republicans are lying, Democrats don't steal elections, that, we just cry babies, elections don't get stolen, all this, all that. That is a stone cold, absolute bald-faced lie. And again, I'm going to show you the evidence. You're going to say, what's your evidence, Vince? Oh, I'm going to have my receipts. I don't just talk. I'm going to bring them to you today, player. So we're going to take it all the way back. Let's go all the way back to the election of 1876. I want to take it back a little bit further than that. I'm going to take it back to before the Civil War. Let me ask y'all a question out there. It's a very intriguing question for black people. Show you how the Democratic Party and the white masters from the Democrat Party had their hold on the black community. There was an election for Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner, had his slaves at Monticello. Everybody knows the story about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings and the black children that he had by her and the slaves he had at Monticello. And then there was the president, who was John Adams. He was George Washington's vice president. John Adams was an abolitionist. Had no slaves, hated slavery, tried to get it put in the Constitution that slavery would not be permitted in the United States of America. That was John Adams, all right? Him and Thomas Jefferson. John Adams was the second president of the United States of America. Thomas Jefferson was running to be president, to succeed him. He was going to end up being the third president. And they had a knockdown, drag-out fight. Thomas Jefferson defeats John Adams and becomes third president. Here's my question. If the slaves on Monticello had an opportunity to vote for that election, do you think they would have voted for John Adams or Master Jefferson? Everybody listening to me today knows the black slaves on Monticello would have voted for Thomas Jefferson and would have did a Holy Ghost dance when he won the election. That's right. The same way that the slaves in Virginia or at Mount Vernon would have voted for George Washington when he ran for president. Now, don't be surprised. Y'all doing the same thing now. You're voting for the same Democrats that keep the children locked in failing schools. You're voting for the same Democrats who won't let you pray to your God. You're voting for the same Democrats that are aborting your babies until the 9th month and allowing all this fentanyl and sex trafficking and drugs across the border. The very ones that allow the violence and all the hatred in your schools. I mean, go outside, look around your neighborhoods, and you can say, just by looking around, that the Democrats control everything in my community. They must really hate me. Because if this is love, it's Ike Turner love. So, let's continue. Civil War comes about. Black people don't want to fight for their freedom down south, so the Union soldiers come down. Mostly white. They win the war. 5 years of fighting. They win. Abraham Lincoln gets shot. For doing what? Freeing the slaves. All right. Lincoln shot, assassinated. 600,000 troops from the Union. They die, freeing the slaves. So, what happens after that? Well, the radical Republicans got an attitude. They don't like the Southern Confederacy too much. And they know that the Southern white Democrats of the Confederacy still hate black people, and they're racist. And they understand that if they give them power, that they're going to start doing, again, what they were doing before, which is basically killing black people, making slaves out of them, treat them like dogs. So they decide to disenfranchise many of the old Confederates down south, many of the white people, and give the black people the right to vote. So within 5 years of the end of the Civil War, they passed 3 amendments. 13th Amendment, outlawing slavery. 14th Amendment, telling the states they have to give black people and everybody due process of law, equality under the law. And then the third one was the 15th Amendment, giving black men, not black women, black men the right to vote. No woman could vote, black or white. So in 1870, black men started voting really for the first time. Pay attention to this now, all right? The Confederates couldn't vote. A lot of them still couldn't vote. And in many southern states, there were more black men than white men. South Carolina had 3 times more black men than white men. As a matter of fact, before the Civil War, they had 3 times more black people in South Carolina than white people. Mississippi had 2 times more. Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia were about the same, cut down the middle, and Louisiana was about the same. Virginia, about the same. All right? But a lot of the white Confederates were disenfranchised, and about 400,000 of them were dead. So black people and black men were making up the majority of the voters in a lot of these states, really most of them. Okay. The first election that black men voted in, the Union troops were down, and they were protecting them. So they voted for the Republican Party. Black Republicans got in. President Ulysses S. Grant gets back into office in 1872. Everybody's happy. Well, then these Confederates get mad. These white Democrats really get mad. And they say, look, man, the window is closing. We have to get our power back some type of way. Well, they came up with a plan. It was called the Mississippi Plan. And this is when we get into Democrats stealing elections. What was the Mississippi Plan? Well, it was a plan started in the state of Mississippi. And they said, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to find a way to get the vote in illegal ways and get our power back. This is what it says. In my book, The Iron Triangle, I write intensively about this plan. This is why you need to get it. It explains it to you in great detail. I'm going to read you an excerpt from it. It says, the Mississippi Plan consisted of 3 parts. Part 1, convince through intimidation and fear 10 to 15% of scalawags to vote for Democrat candidates. What's a scalawag? A scalawag is a white Southerner who used to be a Democrat who now has decided to vote Republican. He's a scalawag. They wanted to get at least 10 to 15% of scalawags to vote for the Democrat Party. Now, number 2, intimidate carpetbaggers into either voting Democrat or leaving the state. You hear that? Intimidate them. Intimidate. Threaten to kill, coerce, shoot. Either vote or we gonna run you out the state. The third part of the Mississippi Plan, intimidation of the black population. Planners, landlords, and merchants use economic coercion with limited success. They unleashed the red shirts on them, and the red shirts had taken the place of the Ku Klux Klan as the military wing of the Democratic Party. And the red shirts didn't play. This is something that the red shirts did. LaRon Bennett Jr. in his book Before the Mayflower talked about it. It said one by one, local leaders were killed, driven out of the state, or compromised. In Mississippi, to cite only one case, Charles Caldwell, the courageous state senator, was killed in broad daylight, and his body was grotesquely turned completely over by the impact of innumerable shots at close range. Nobody knows how many Charles Caldwells died in this period. Conservative estimates run into the thousands. Albion Turgey, a white Republican who lived through the counter-revolution, said, of the slain, there was enough to furnish forth a battlefield, and all from three classes: the Negro, the scalawag, and the carpetbagger, all killed with deliberation, overwhelmed by numbers, roused from slumber at murk midnight in the halls of public assembly, upon the riverbank, on the lonely woods, roads in simulation of the public, execution, torture beyond conception. The wounded cannot be counted in this silent warfare. That's what the Democrats did back then to steal elections, y'all. That was the first one they stole. They asked this ex-slave by the name of John Childers of Alabama. He was a witness before Congress to tell Congress something what he had seen. This is what Childers said. They asked him a question. They said, how long after the whipping did she die? They had whipped a little girl to death. John Childers said, in 8 days. How old was she? She would have been 10 years old on the 26th of next August. Were a colored man known as a Democrat and votes Democratic Party, is he ever whipped or interfered with? So they asked him, if a black man voted for a Democratic Party, was he ever whipped or interfered with? Childers says, not at all, sir. You see why you're a Democrat now? You see where the Stockholm Syndrome and the cognitive dissonance comes from now? They beat your child to death if you voted Republican. Next question. So only the Republicans that are whipped and their children killed. Children say, yes, sir. These men that contends for their equal rights and for person and property with white men. Those are the ones that are killed. They are the men singled out and punished, are they? Yes, sir. Last question. How many of your people in this country do you think have been whipped or otherwise outraged because of their political sentiments? Oh, hundreds. I cannot number them to you, sir. That's your Democrat Party. And y'all still voting for them. Still, right now, if you say that you're a Republican or anything other than a Democrat, they'll try to malign you, take your job, kick you out your house, talk about you, threaten you. What's changed? Past is never dead. It's not even the past. It's still here. Our Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. I'm reading you what they did in 1876. And you know what happened? The whole South, the whole ex-Confederacy, all went Democrat. It said that in some of the counties where there had been large majority populations, 6 of the most stable, large black counties, they said that they had 12 votes, 7 votes, 5 votes, and 0 votes in the election of 1876. The Democrats had shut them down. And you can go into some black neighborhoods now on election day in the inner city, you'll see a unicorn before you see a Republican vote. Oh, if you say you're a Republican, they want to kill you. Black folks will run you out of the community. You know why? Because back then, they told you and they taught you and they sealed it in your brain to obey. Do what you're told or we'll kill you. And now most of you just say, yes, sir, boss. Whatever you say, boss. Mm-hmm. Lord have mercy. You know, they said the greatest trick that the devil ever pulled was convincing us that he no longer existed. What does that mean? Well, when you don't know the devil is out there, you ain't looking for him. It's like the old mafia. They didn't want nobody to know they existed. Because once people started understanding about organized crime, they started looking for them. It was like the fly and the spider, right? Fly comes in your house, you sitting there trying to watch TV, he's all in your face, he's driving you crazy, you finally say, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna kill this fly. Then you got the spider. Spider, you can move out of your house, you pull back your dresser, and you look back, there's a spider web, and the spider's been dead for the last 15 years, you know he's back there. He's quiet. You waited till you went to bed at night, and he came out and he hunted, and he lived with you. For years, maybe decades, and you didn't even know he was there. The Democrats used to be the spider. Now they're the fly. Oh, they're everywhere. Oh, they got, drag queens in your schools. Oh, they got all these illegals sleeping on the streets. Oh, they got all this crime and snatch and grabs. You see them now, don't you? They used to could lie. Oh, we're not for abortion up to the 9th month. Oh, them people lying. They're crazy. They tripping. Oh, no. We trying to get you the best schools in America. We trying to make the schools good for you. Now you see they're monster factories. So how are they still elections now, y'all? Well, in my other great book, 25 Lies, I talk about it. It's chapter 13 in 25 Lies. What is the lie? Democrats don't steal elections. That's the lie, because they do. I talk about the Mississippi plan a bit, but I talk about how the Democrats tried to fool the Republicans in 1876. What they did was, the Republicans found out about all of these shenanigans coming down, so they sent a 15-member committee down there to find out and investigate. There were 8 Republicans, 7 Democrats on this committee. They go down there and they find out about the beatings. They found out about the intimidations. They found out about the murders. And then they found out something extraordinarily interesting. They found out that the state of South Carolina did something that was absolutely positively impossible. You know what South Carolina did? They had 101% of the registered voters voting in the state. Not 100%, 101%. They got just a little bit too happy. So it's almost like you have only 100 people can vote, but 101 people vote. You say that 10,000 people can vote, but only 10,000 people are in a town, but 10,100 put in ballots. You know something just ain't right. So they found this, not just only in South Carolina, but also in Florida. And so the Republicans said, no, there's some shenanigans. We are going to take the Electoral College votes of South Carolina, and we're going to give them to the Republican, Rutherford B. Hayes. South Carolina says, if you do it, we're going to start the Civil War all back over again. We're tired of you people messing with us, So they sat down and compromised. And this was a compromise. The Republican President Hayes said, you know what? We've been down here in the South for 16 years, from 1860 to 1876, protecting these black people's right to vote. And you know what these jokers have done? They have voted for the Democrat Party. Well, the white people were intimidating them. The white people was fighting them. Our black folks got guns too. And this is another lesson from this. You don't ever rely on the government to protect you. Republican government or Democrat government. You rely on your own protection. Because Rutherford B. Hayes said, since you guys voted for these people, you can have them. South Carolina said, if you pull out all of your troops, we'll give you our electoral college votes. And they pulled them out. And you know what happened? When they pulled out all of the Union troops, immediately the Confederates took over the South all over again and disenfranchised black folks for the next 100 years. And by the time black people got the right to vote again, they had turned into their old masters. Racist. The black leadership was racist, cruel. And they helped their white masters in their plan to divide black and white Christians, to keep them separated so they could do their devilment and their dirt. So now what do? They work hand in glove now. So this is what they did in the election of 2020. The great Rahm Emanuel, was Barack Obama's chief of staff, said, you never let a crisis go to waste. And what was the crisis? COVID. Oh, they told everybody, if you go vote, you're going to die. So we got to make it where you can vote and not have to go out to vote. And the Republicans, panicking, okay, let's let them. So they started setting up these drop boxes. Down in Georgia, Mark Zuckerberg spent $400 million. They call them Zucker boxes, where people could go and just drop their ballot into these boxes, and then people pick them up at the end of the day and they count the ballots. That sounds kind of innocuous, doesn't it? Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Till you found out how they mistreated it. They had to fix where you could vote. You didn't have to have any signature verification. You didn't have to put your driver's license number on it. You didn't have to put no social security. You just drop it in there, and that's what they voted. That's how they counted it. They'd have people coming there in the middle of the night with just ballots that they had probably filled out on their kitchen table. Stuff them all in there. And they had to be counted. And that's how Georgia turned from red to blue in 1 year. By the time the stupid Republicans knew what hit them, Raphael Warnock and this other guy had become senators from the state, and Donald Trump had lost it. They looked around in Michigan, they were doing the same thing. It's called adjudication. What is adjudication? Well, adjudication is you do a ballot, right? You fill it out. And you probably didn't fill it, you might not have filled it out right or whatever, So the person looks at it and they can't read it, and so they take it to a judge. And the judge looks at the ballot, and the judge says, oh, that's a Biden vote or that's a Trump vote, and then it's counted that way. Now, once the judge makes his decision, that's it. You can't argue with it. They say about 80% of the ballots that went to adjudication in Detroit and Milwaukee and Philadelphia went for Biden. But the ballot just clearly a Trump ballot. And when the people for the Trump campaign wanted to come over and check the adjudication ballots, they had passed some type of COVID law that says you had to be 25 feet away from the person so they couldn't catch it. You see where I'm going with this? These are legal ways that you cheat. You ain't got to worry about jokers hacking voting machines and all that kind of foolishness. The Democrats do it the old-fashioned way. Lyndon Johnson stole his race in the 60s to become senator from Texas. Jimmy Carter lost, had to go to court to prove that he had lost his race for the Senate down in Georgia. John F. Kennedy won the presidency because he used the mob and Sam Giancana and them to steal Chicago. Every major city in America has a Democrat Party political machine. Tammany Hall in New York, the Pendergrass machine in Southern Missouri, the Crump machine down in Memphis, the Daily Machine in Chicago, the Bradley Machine in LA, the Kennedy Machine up in Boston. Hey, man, we can keep on going. This is what they do. The Coleman Young Machine up in Detroit. Machine politics, this is their game. You think they're going to end it? This is their bread and butter. If they had a choice to win an election straight up or steal an election, they choose to steal it. Now, to show you that I ain't lying, because all y'all saying, Vince lying, Vince tripping, y'all talking about a Democrat, don't know what he's talking about. All right, then. In my book, 25 Lies, there I take excerpts from this book written by a Democrat. Her name is Mary Frances Berry. The title of her book is very, very adequate. It's about stealing campaigns. It's called $5 and a pork chop sandwich by Mary Frances Berry. And it was written in 2000, but she talked about the 2000 election here in this book. So this is what she wrote about an election, the 2000 election in the state of Louisiana. And this young man by the name of Greg Malveaux, he was looking for voter fraud. All right? And so Greg Malveaux started talking to this older black woman. This is what the old black woman said. This is what Miss Frances Berry wrote. She said, Malveaux's respectful manner erased her doubts. She was pleased to see a black man in such a big government job. She told him she voted and began casually explaining how politicians bought votes on election day. She would be driven to the polls with instructions on whom to vote for. She'd be driven to the polls with instructions on whom to vote for. When she cast her ballot, the driver gave her $5. She didn't know this was illegal. Yeah, I bet she didn't. Quote, this is the way it's supposed to be, she said. That was the way it was always done. And besides, we poor people need the money. Vote buyers in rural areas acting as middlemen generally receive $10 per voter from a candidate whom had no personal contact with the voters in the process. Half of the money, $5, went to the voter, as the elderly woman had told him. Sometimes the payment was, and I don't know how to say this word properly, so y'all give me some grace here. It's spelled Lagniappe. It looks like Lagniappe. Could be wrong. But that is a pork chop sandwich and a cold drink. But that's how she spelled it. Lagniappe. A pork chop sandwich and a cold drink. And in urban areas, the process of the payoffs were handled by organizations with benign names. Local prosecutors, because they too were elected, refused to abolish the system by prosecuting the people they themselves sometimes hired to win office. So prosecutors wouldn't prosecute the people because they were winning elections through it. This chapter in 25 Lies tells you all about how Democrats steal elections, even today. Forget about the voting machines. Forget about all this highfalutin crap they've been talking about. They steal it the way they've always stolen it. Ball look in a pork chop sandwich, ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, intimidation, walking around money. I got a whole segment on walking around money. Shows to the polls where the Sunday before the Tuesday of the election, they send buses to churches, and the churches then take their people to the polls and have them vote. The pastor get paid for everybody that votes for the Democrat Party. End the story, y'all. That's what they do to you. So do Democrats steal elections? Yes, they steal elections. And they're going to try to steal this one. Here's the good news, though. They can only steal them if they're less than 2%. Over 2%, it gets much, much more difficult to do it. But they've always disrespected y'all. It was this senator in the state of South Carolina. He owned a cotton plantation, and they called him Cotton Ed Smith. This is Ed Smith's, what he would say and his slogan for every last one of his campaigns. You know what he say? Keep the cost of cotton up and keep the N-word down. It wasn't the N-word. You know what he said. Keep the price of cotton up and keep the N-word down. That's how they've always seen y'all. That's how they always will see you. They killed 150 people in South Carolina, by some estimates, in one county, leading up to the leading up to the election of 1876. They killed 300 in Vicksburg, Mississippi. They killed thousands. They always have. They're killing you now through abortion. They're killing you now through crime, failing schools, drugs. They've always murdered you. Nevertheless, I've proven to you that for 150, 60 years, you still voted for them. You deserve everything you get. All of it. The Democratic Party and the liberals in it right now are turning the whole world against us. War in Ukraine, Eastern Europe, Africa, China, and Asia. Joe Biden has done something no other American president ever been able to do. Two things: make black people leave the Democratic Party and bring Russia and China together. Why? Because he's pressing climate change, LGBTQ, and abortion, and telling these countries either take it or America turns into your enemy. And they're pushing America away. And you black Christians are the ones giving the Democrat power to do this to the world and to this nation. You know what? In our Bible, there's a story about Jacob and Esau. They were two brothers, fraternal twins, born to Isaac. They were Abraham's grandsons. Jacob was shrewd. Esau was more of a wild man. But Esau was born first. And being the firstborn, Esau was supposed to get his father's birthright and his blessing. Everything was going to go to Esau. And Jacob wanted to steal it from his brother. Esau was stupid. And Esau couldn't see the future. All he cared about was right now. So one day Esau had been hunting, hadn't caught anything all day, and Esau was hungry. Oh, he was hungry. Esau was he thought he was starving to death because he was so hungry. Jacob was cooking a bowl of pottage, just a bowl of soup. A bowl of soup. Esau comes over to Jacob and says, "Oh, Jacob, I'm hungry, man. Give me something to eat." Jacob said, "I ain't going to give you nothing." He said, "Come on, Jacob, man. Give me something to eat. I'm starving." Jacob said, "I'll give you some pottage if you show me your birthright." Do you understand this? His birthright. That means all of his father's land, houses, money. It could have been worth $10 million. And Esau, to get a bowl of soup, sold his birthright to his brother Jacob. Our Bible tells us that God did not hate Jacob for this. He hated Esau, despised him, because he sold his birthright for hardly anything. A lot of us have the spirit of Esau in us. We're selling our vote, our birthright, for a pork chop sandwich and a cold drink. We're selling our birthright, something people have died for $5 a bottle of liquor. How do you think God feels about you? Until you change your contrary and ignorant ways, you will never have anything. Keep voting to kill your own children because they tell you to here. Keep sending the ones that survive to schools who want to educate them when you can pull them out just by voting for another person to give you school choice. Keep on allowing those illegals to come across and bring fentanyl and sex trafficking and all this mess and crime to your inner cities. Keep on doing it. Keep on letting these people keep you from praying to your God and tell your children, God is not welcome here. Keep on letting them transition them. Bring all this foolishness and sexualize your children. See what you get. You'll be despised like Esau. You'll be hated like Esau. Like all the way around the world. You're not respected, you're pitied. We have time. Stand up straight and be men. The Democratic Party is an evil institution. It's the evilest institution in the history of the world. But a man that believes he is free and a man that believes that he is a slave, both are correct. Y'all go to my website. Tell you more about these things that I'm talking about today. Go get my documentary, Will You Go to Hell For Me? It'll talk to you more about this. It'll make you understand what the Democratic Party is and how it does what it does and how it wants to send your soul to hell. You've seen me talk about my first book, Iron Triangle. It started it all. One of the best books ever written. 25 Lies. It'll take you more in depth what I talked about today, how the Democratic Party steals elections. I do a whole chapter on it. And then Crime Inc. Just as I've talked about today, the Democratic Party is a criminal institution. And they'll do anything to win. Like I said, if they're not cheating, they're not trying. Brothers and sisters, I'm here to wake you up. Hope I did you some good today. So join me again next week on the Vince Everett Ellison Show.